Hello, this is Bill Jones with recapturefederalism.com, talking to you today from Freedom's Nest, as we usually do. Yeah, it's my home office and recording studio. And we have another presentation today, obviously about communism, as we always talk about communism. And it is, the subject is America's secret communist army. Wow, is that controversial? It sure is. As I always have them. Nobody else talks about this stuff, so I do it. And I do it in memory of the Americans that have been killed by communism over the years. 33,000 plus in Korean War. 58,000 plus Southeast Asia, Vietnam War, which I served in the United States Navy. We're going to have an oath. I'll have my oath in a second here, and we'll go from there. But this is the intro. We're going to be talking about that. Up on the screen you see the guidelines on the organizational structure of the Communist parties and the methods and content of their work. Adopted 24th session of the Third Congress of the Communist International, 12 July 1921. That's interesting. This guidelines mention Vietnam. The Viet Minh, which is a Communist Party, founded in 1930, Vietnam. Of course, Viet Minh, it's named after the leader, the communist leader. And where do you think he was indoctrinated? He was indoctrinated in Russia. And this is what he was indoctrinated with, these guidelines, and of course the Communist Manifesto. In the 20s, returned to Vietnam, started up that party there, and all the things that we've done. And what I'm going to be talking about today, they initially had a Vietnamese secret communist party. You know, they kept saying in the South it was a civil war. It was not a civil war. It was a communist invasion by communist forces and ideology. We will continue shortly. We will do our administrative stuff, and then we'll come right back, and we will be talking about America's secret communist army, and we'll get into details. And the first thing we always do is take care of administrative business. You got to do the business first, and that's the oath. I, William R. Jones, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, so help me God. And as I always say, been keeping that oath since 1965, July 1965, when I joined the Navy. To see the world, and what did I see? The Atlantic, it was frantic. Well, yeah, the enemy then was communism, as it is now. And what I mean by communism is a generic term to me. Those adhering to the Communist Manifesto and the guidelines of the Communist Party in 1921. That's what I mean by communist. They're totalitarians, they're political party supremacy, despotic, the whole thing there. And it's a lot easier to just say commie or communist. And that's what I mean by that. And General quarters, all hands man your battle stations, up and forward to starboard, down and aft to port, set material condition zebra throughout the ship. This is not a drill, communist insurrection, general quarters. This next slide on the screen right now is the subject matter of today. It's where it's located at. I do some of these things, and I'm reluctant to read this stuff, but I find myself having to go back and read it because I'm not making this stuff up. It's here. It's there. You want to get it, look at it, hold it in your hands. I'll tell you where to go. You can go to Marxist.org, Communist Manifesto. You can get that there. You can also get the guidelines, and it's here. You could read it. Now I've got a copy of it, and I'm going to be reading off of. I've got it all marked up. So when I do my commentary, I'm going to be talking about it, but it's an actual guidelines. It's an actual blueprint of what they do. And then when you see here, look at this. There are 8 sections. This is Roman numeral 8. It's the last section. Totally, there's 59 line items. We're starting here at 53, which is what starts in section 8. And we go through the 59. Each one of the sections is 1 paragraph to 3 or 4 paragraphs, and we'll go over them. As you can see, the second paragraph is 1 sentence. Sometimes they're, the third paragraph there is rather long. But we'll go through this. I have mine all marked up in red and highlighted and everything else. I've been studying this stuff for 55 years. I just got into the manifesto and the guidelines here last few years, into it deeply. I thought I knew enough to go get by with it, but you got to watch out. Right away, people call you McCarthy and your McCarthyism and blah blah blah. But you got to source all this stuff, and this stuff. When you start reading this stuff, it is chilling. It is chilling. What has been happening the last 129 years, to be exact, is all right in here. It's what's been going on. The insurrection. I mentioned insurrections. We've had an insurrection going on since 1886 in this country. Secretly. Silent. And we're going to talk about it. It's all in here. And we're going to title of this section on the combination of legal and illegal work. Illegal work. We're talking criminal stuff here. Yeah. Stuff. Oh, it doesn't exist. It exists. It exists. What happened in Vietnam and what's happening in Korea, any of these places, and in Cuba, all these places were and it's all started off of this stuff, these guidelines, in the Communist Manifesto. It's all here. They'll tell you what they're going to do. If you read the stuff, they're not going to tell you publicly because they keep it all secret. You'd be outraged. You'd be taking action against them if you knew about it. And that's why I am in the educational process trying to inform the people. We are all communist slaves. I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? I'm going to be doing other presentations about that and get very specific about that and improve that point. But I'm going to talk to you today about the America's secret communist army. And let's get right into it. We start out number 53, their first paragraph. Corresponding to the different phases in the process of the revolution, changes in function can occur in the daily life of every communist party. Basically, however, there is no essential difference in the party structure, which is a legal party on the one hand and an illegal party on the other. Must survive for. Okay? Some of this language is kind of a little bit on the rough side because it's obviously a translation. It wasn't originally written in English. It was the Communist Manifesto was in German, and you got some of it was written in Russian and some other things that they put it all together. But legal and illegal. That's what I say. Legal and illegal. We got stuff secretly going on. Even the stuff that's, quote, legal, which really isn't, they're not going to tell you about that either. Like, communism doesn't exist in America. Do you believe that? Do you actually believe it? The media would have you believing it doesn't exist. You're some quack, some wacko, if you really pursue this idea that there's communists and the Democrats are communist and the Republicans are communist and the democratic centralism and blah, 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 blah. Well, They exist, and it's legal and illegal. Now we proceed, and like I say, the next paragraph is one sentence. The party must be organized so that it can at all times adapt itself quickly to changes in the conditions of the struggle. Anytime you see the word by these communists, struggle, they're talking about class warfare, different classes, and you see it all over. It's communist chaos. It's communist propaganda and agitation. All this stuff you see going around in America, Ferguson, Baltimore, hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. That's all communist chaos. All of it. Okay? Everything that's happening. Communism is a totalitarian religion and political ideology. Everything that's happening in America is related to communism at this point. Okay? And that's the class warfare. Insurrection. That's the insurrection, the class warfare. Struggle. Insurrection. Terrorism. Treason. Won't talk too much today about treason, but that's what it is. They don't talk about that either. Even the constitutional scholars, they don't even talk about it. It's still in my Constitution. I read it all the time. Then we're going to go over this next paragraph is a larger paragraph. And in this paragraph, I want you to listen to how many times I say combat. And let's get right into this paragraph here. It's a rather long one. Bear with me. The Communist Party must develop itself into a combat organization capable on the one hand of avoiding open encounters with an enemy possessing overwhelming superior forces, who has amassed all of its strength at one point, but on the other hand also capable of exploiting this enemy's unwieldiness, striking him when and where he least expects the attack. It would be the gravest error for the party organization to prepare for and expect only insurrections and street fighting or only conditions of the most severe repression. Communists must carry out their preparatory revolutionary work in every situation and always be on combat footing, because it is often almost impossible to predict the altercation between a period of upheaval and a period of quiescence. And even in cases where such foresight is possible, it cannot generally be used to reorganize the party, because the change usually occurs in a very short time, indeed often quite suddenly. So here you have it, like Baltimore, Ferguson, Watts riots back in the 60s, all this stuff, it's all related, all interrelated, going way back to 1886, as I say. But here they're talking, what are they talking about? Combat organization, insurrection, street fighting, repression, combat footing. Yeah, that's all in one paragraph. They're talking violence. They're talking riots, insurrections. We have laws against that stuff. Nobody ever gets charged. And I did a piece on the anti-war demonstrators in the 60s and the 70s, calling me a baby killer. That's all part of that too. None of those people were ever. Jane Fonda, never arrested. Kerry, never arrested. What he did was illegal. He broke the law. 18 U.S.C. Chapter 115. Treason. Subversion. Yeah. That's what it is. Now we're going to be going into the next thing, 54. 54, that's just another one, 3 paragraphs. First paragraph. The legal communist parties in the capitalist countries generally have not yet sufficiently grasped that it is their task to understand how the party should properly arm itself for revolutionary uprising, for armed struggle, or for illegal struggle in general. The entire party organization is built much too one-sidedly on the enduring legality, and is organized according to the requirements of legal day-to-day task. Next paragraph. Let me go back in here. Again, they're talking about revolutionary uprising, armed struggle, illegal struggle. This is all chaos. That illegal struggle, that's criminality. They talk about legality. They talk about illegality. And they mix them all up. It's all struggle, all chaos. They have spurts of violence. Then they do legislation and things of this sort. The communist civil rights movement, that's what it is. It's communist. It's all part of that. Oh, we've got our rights. The only people that have rights under the communist system is the supporters of the Communist Party and the leadership. Everybody else is considered enemy. Next paragraph. In the illegal parties, in contrast, there is often insufficient understanding of the possibilities for exploiting legal activity and for building a party organization and living contact with the revolutionary masses. In this case, party work shows a tendency to remain a fruitless Sisyphean labor or impotent conspiracy. Wow. They use the word conspiracy here. Notice it's not a conspiracy theory. And I've gone over this before. There is no such thing as a conspiracy theory. There's either a conspiracy or a not conspiracy. And first of all, as we're talking here, legal and illegal, what do you have when you have a conspiracy? First of all, you have to have a crime. And then there's two or more people involved in it. That's a conspiracy, and you have to have proof to do it. It's not a theory. It either is or it isn't. How manipulative are these people? Look at this. They're exploiting legal activity. Manipulation, chaos, struggle. And then we go on to the third. I said there was only 3 paragraphs, but I was wrong. There's 4 paragraphs. And we're going to go to the third paragraph. Both are wrong. Every legal communist party must know how to ensure maximal combat readiness if it should have to go underground. It must be armed, particularly for the outbreak of revolutionary uprising. In turn, every illegal communist party must energetically exploit the opportunities provided by legal workers' movement in order to develop through intensive party work into the organizer and the actual leader of the great revolutionary masses. Well, let's look at this a little bit, into a little detail, a little explanation, a comment. Can't resist this. Combat readiness. In case you got to go underground. They're underground completely, and with the help of the press and the communist pimping media, as I call them. Yeah. You have to remember, this written back in 1921, has been some changes in our culture, and you have technology and advancements there. And I mean, 1921, we didn't even have television or radio back then. All we had was the press. Now you have all these other things, plus the internet and what have you. Again, they mention revolutionary uprisings. Yeah, like I say, insurrection since 1886. It's like pulsations. You have it now, a little bit now, then it gets quiet, then it gets acts up again, then you have a riot here, you'll have a Ferguson there, you'll have a Baltimore there, you'll have a couple of cops get killed, and we'll get into that too later on, because they talk about that too. Yeah. And killing the police officers, again, 18 U.S.C., Chapter 115, I believe it's Section 2384, I may be wrong. Somewhere around there. Advocating the overthrow of government. That's what they're talking about here, aren't they? That's a 1909 law. A 1909 law. Do they ever charge people with that? Very seldom. Very seldom. And we see down the end of this paragraph. Organizer and actual leader of the great revolutionary masses. That's the party leadership. That's the people, the organizers in the communities. You know, your Jesse Jacksons and your Al Sharptons. they're part of the communist army, the secret communist army. They're all part of that. All the party members are. All the union leadership, they're all part of that. Yeah, it says so right here, doesn't it? Ah, legal workers movement. Oh, yeah. Then we go to the next paragraph, just one sentence. The leadership of legal and illegal work must always be in the hands of the same unitary central party leadership. And this is my favorite line that I like to use. Political party supremacy. Yeah, yeah. You don't ever hear about that. They'll deflect the attention to other places. They'll talk to you about white supremacy, and that's a problem. White supremacy is a problem. Minor in comparison to political party supremacy, the two political parties, which are both communist parties, democratic parties, one disguised as Republican principles, which they don't follow. But that's what that is, isn't it? The same unitary central party leadership. Political party supremacy. Lived my entire life in Cook County, Illinois, Chicago. Know all about political party supremacy. I'm an expert on that because that's all we've had here for decades. And that's what that is. Am I calling the mayor of Chicago a communist? I do. That's all part of that political party supremacy. And we'll get into it in a little bit about their street gangs. Next we have line item 55. It has two paragraphs. First paragraph. Within both the legal and the illegal parties, illegal communist organization of work is often conceived of as the creation and maintenance of a closed, exclusively military organization isolated from the rest of the party work and party organization. That is completely wrong. Notice they say they lay something out and they say it's completely wrong. A lot of times it really is right, but we'll look at that in detail. They continue on. On the contrary, in the pre-revolutionary period, our combat organizations must be built primarily through the general Communist Party work. The entire party should be trained as a combat organization for the revolution. As I said, this was written in 1921, the product of a convention that the communists had. And so some of the things that they say, it turns around that they've done, this idea of a closed, exclusively military organization. Some of the stuff is separated from the party at the present time. In 2012, the state of Illinois, the Illinois General Assembly, passed a law for civil liabilities against street gangs. They had a legislative finding that street gangs, I hope you're sitting down, the street gangs are or is terrorism. The present makeup of street gangs in the city of Chicago is about a 10-to-1 ratio of the street gang members versus sworn officers on the Chicago Police Department. The ratio is of a 10-to-1. Not that many are getting arrested. The only time they arrest these people is if they actually are involved in a crime and a police officer receives a complaint, or the police officer witnesses it or is following up on a crime, and they arrest somebody for that crime. I have yet to see in the last 2 or 3 years where anybody in authority has sued these street gangs. They obviously don't try and take their gun on a mass scale, take their guns away. They have more guns than the citizens. That's part of all of this secret communist army. Yes, they're domestic terrorists, and they are part of the secret communist army. And importantly, the last line of this paragraph. The entire party should be trained as a combat organization for the revolution. The entire party should be trained as insurgents, as revolutionaries, as terrorists. That's right, domestic terrorists. That's what they're talking about when the state General Assembly, with legislative finding, says that they're terrorists. That's what they're talking about. They never once used the word communism, by the way. I've been over that. I have done presentations in the past about that legislation. And then the last paragraph in section, or in line item 55, this one only had 2 paragraphs. This is the second paragraph. I will read. Isolated revolutionary military organizations established too soon before the revolution are very apt to show tendencies toward disillusion and demoralization because there is lack of directly useful party work for them to do. Wow. That, of course, is written back in 1921 again. And they do have these. They do party work. And part of the party work, for instance, the gangs in Chicago, they support themselves dealing in drugs. That's right. So they're getting their existence is there, and whenever they're needed for a riot or to go to Ferguson or to Baltimore, like Baltimore, they had the street gangs, they had the Bloods and the Crips. They showed up there after a few days. You had organized people coming in from these communist cells coming into Ferguson. We all know that, don't we? Sure we do. Sure we do. But they have useful party work, and part of it's the crime. If you've ever seen my graphic, they are the communist criminal class. They do that. They were involved in this by this mortgage bundling deal, this economic problem that we had just a few years ago. They were involved in Chicago, at least I know. They were involved in doing some of the mortgages on that. They had a regular scam going here in Chicago. Getting mortgages for people, knew they were going to fail. And you can find out that they did the white-collar crimes on the mortgages. That's in the 2011 FBI gang threat assessment. You can look that up. Again, you can get that from the FBI. The next line items, line item 56. Looks like it's about 2 or 3 paragraphs, I guess. Some big ones. We'll go to the first paragraph. For the illegal party, it is obviously of critical importance in all of its work to protect its members and bodies from discovery and not to expose them by, for example, membership registration, careless dues collection, or literature distribution. Therefore, it cannot use open forms of organization for conspiratorial purposes to the same degree as a legal party, but it can learn to do so in an increasing extent. Again, written 1921, and they do it very well. They're talking secret, aren't they? Conspiracy. A secret conspiracy. An army. That's correct. Second paragraph, line item 56. All precautionary measures must be taken to prevent the penetration of dubious and unreliable elements into the party. The methods to be used will depend very largely on whether the party is legal or illegal, persecuted or tolerated, growing rapidly or stagnating. One method which has provided successful here and there under certain circumstances is the system of candidacy. Under this system, an applicant for membership in the party is admitted first as a candidate of a recommendation of one or two party comrades, and whether he can be admitted as a member is dependent upon his proving himself in the party assigned to him. They have a communist merit system of promotion. You see that? Wow. And then you ever wonder why the same people getting elected and moving up the ranks? Hello, Hillary. Hello, Bill Clinton. Hello, Joe Biden. All of them. They're moving up the party organization because they've done such wonderful communist work in the past. That's what they're telling you here is a system of candidacy. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Next paragraph. Inevitably, the bourgeoisie will try to send spies and provocateurs into illegal organization. This must be fought with the utmost care and persistence. One method in this fight is a skillful combination of legal and illegal work. Prolonged legal revolutionary work is absolutely the best way to test who is reliable, courageous, conscientious, energetic, adroit, punctual enough to be entrusted with the important assignment suited to his abilities in illegal work. Wow, I keep talking about illegal work. You know, this sending in spies and provocateurs, that was done in the 60s with gangs. And they exposed those gangs and they demonstrated and everything else, and they got the FBI out of the undercover people out. They got them out. They wouldn't allow them in. They keep an eye on it. And that's what they've done with the parties too. They don't let insiders in. You better be a good party guy. You're not going to stay, because they'll get rid of you. All for illegal work. And as I've said before, political parties in the United States are illegal. Last paragraph. Line 156. A legal party should constantly improve its defensive measures to avoid being taken by surprise, for example, by keeping cover addresses in a safe place. As a rule, destroying letters, putting necessary documents in safekeeping, giving its couriers conspiratorial training, etc. Oh, yeah. You know this here. And this is why what they did, the screenwriters in the 50s were the big deal. Never punished for anything, and they were communist members. And they learned a lot from that. Don't ever admit it. They just say communism doesn't exist. We'll call it something else like progressivism. That's communism. That's what it is. That's all it is a deflection away from the word communism. Progressivism is a progressing from constitutional republic system to a democratic communist system. But we can't call it communist. That's what they're telling you. You can't call it communist. You got to keep it subdued there. Use some other words. Use some other communist language of minorities, blacks, stuff of that sort, gays. Civil rights movement, human population control movement, all these movements, don't call it communism now. You gotta keep it all secret. Next we have line item 57, 2 paragraphs. The first one. It follows that our overall party work must be distributed in such a way that even before the open revolutionary uprising, the roots of combat organization corresponding to the requirements of this stage develop and take hold. It is especially important that the Communist Party leadership constantly keep these requirements in mind, and that it try to extend possible to form a clear conception of them in advance. Naturally, this conception can never be exact or clear enough as a priority, but that is no reason to disregard this most important aspect of communist organizational leadership. Oh yeah, the community organizers. That's right. We got to keep it all going. Got to keep it the roots of a combat organization corresponding to the requirements. Revolutionary uprising. open. They have it. They do it in spurts. A little bit here, a little bit too. That's what I learned in 1962. Two steps forward, one step back. Remember, Ann O'Connor, the teacher, telling me that in our class. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Regroup, attack again, do whatever they're going to do again. Yard by yard, it's hard. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. This is what they're saying in here. And this is the anti-communists. That's what they say about him. Yeah, that's what they say about him. Second paragraph, last paragraph, line 157. And it starts out, for when, in the open revolutionary uprising, a communist party is faced with the greatest change in function of its life, this change can pose very difficult and complicated tasks for even the best organized party. It may be a matter of mobilizing our political party for military combat within a few days, and not only the party but also its reserves, the organizations of sympathizers, indeed even the entire Home Guard, the unorganized revolutionary masses. At this point, the formation of a regular Red Army is still out of the question. We must be victorious without an army built in advance by means of the masses under the leadership of the party. For this reason, even the most heroic struggle may avail us not if our party has not been prepared organizationally in advance for this situation. As I say, written in 1921, things have changed, but they're still progressing. They're still progressives. They're still going there. They've changed things in their operation somewhat. They do have a Red Army, an America's secret communist army here. It's different probably from what they visualized in 1921, but they have adapted, and they've adapted very well. One thing you say about the communists, they're not stupid. They're evil, but they're not stupid. And they've made some changes. They talk about them here. Talking about adapting and doing different things. No, they don't have yet. They might be mobilizing these police with all this equipment and what have you. You think? That's the point at which, at Jade Helms, for instance, some point after this or that point, that's going to be your organized Red Army. Our army. I hope if you have some family members in the military, you let them know that they've got an oath that they need to keep up. And being part of a Red Army is not part of that oath. You see what they say, we must be victorious without an army built in advance by means of the masses. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about those gangs and that. That's where you're talking about. It's an army, but not an army. It's the reserves. Next, we're getting into line item 58. 3 paragraphs. And if you're in law enforcement, I want you to listen up real close. If you're in law enforcement, if you're a veteran, but more specifically, if you're in law enforcement, I want you to listen up real close here. Because in these 3 paragraphs, we're going to be talking about you and how you are a target. Line 58, first paragraph. In revolutionary situations, it is often observed that the revolutionary central leadership proved incapable of performing its task. The proletariat can achieve splendid things in the revolution as regards to lesser organizational tasks. In its headquarters, however, for the most part, disorder, bewilderment, and chaos reign. Even the most elementary division of labor can be lacking. The intelligence department in particular is often so bad it does more harm than good. There is no depending on the communications. When clandestine mailing and transport, safe houses, and clandestine printing presses are needed, these are usually totally at the mercy of fortunate or unfortunate coincidence. The organized enemy is every provocation has the best prospects for success. Again, written in 1921. Note that condition has since changed. The communists have gotten their act together. You know, it is a failed system, but they're very efficient at being illegal and having clandestine operations. The whole system in America of communism, how clandestine can you get? Nobody acknowledges it. You have the press working for them. So they're very good at that. They've done a very, very good job. Now the next paragraph, and this, in law enforcement, listen up, it's very important. Nor can it be otherwise unless leading Revolutionary Party has organized special work for these purposes in advance. For example, observing and exposing the political police requires special practice and an apparatus for clandestine communications can function swiftly and reliably only through extended regular operation, etc. Every legal communist party needs some kind of secret preparations, no matter how minimal, in all areas of specialized revolutionary work. Political police. That's the normal police, state and local police. That's what they're talking about. The regular police, they're working for the bourgeoisie, as they call it, you know, the middle class, the ruling class. Well, isn't that what the police are supposed to be for? Working for the people? They're part of the people, the free citizens class. But you see, if they're that means they are the enemy to communist. Back in the 60s, I mentioned earlier about me being called, and all of Vietnam vets being called baby killers. That's part of that. That's part of this exposing political police, exposing veterans. What were the police back in 68? They were pigs. They attacked, the first attack, an insurrection in the United States in 1886 in Chicago, the Haymarket Square. Police officers were killed by labor demonstrations, and they were communists. Workers of the World Unite, Haymarket Square. They were demonstrating for the 8-hour day. Communism, communism, communism. And it just so happened to have a coincidence. They happened to have an explosive device that killed, I believe it was 4 police officers. There was a monument, Haymarket Square monument, was destroyed 5 days after I returned to Chicago, being discharged from active duty. That was October 1st, 1969. Well, October 6th, 1969, the Weathermen, communist organization, blew up that Haymarket Square memorial. But back at that time, they were pigs. Police pigs, that's right. Targeted back then, targeted in 1886, targeted in Ferguson, targeted in Baltimore, targeted everywhere. They are after your butts if you're in law enforcement. They're coming after you. Nothing new, 129 years they've been doing it. And they work behind you every chance they get. They'll come up with something, make something up, doesn't make any difference. It's part of the struggle. It's part of the chaos. It's part of the treason. That's right. It's part of the treason, insurrection, rioting, all of that. Next paragraph. For the most part, we can develop the necessary apparatus even in these areas through completely legal work, provided that in the organization of this work, attention is paid to the kind of apparatus that should arise from it. For example, the bulk of an apparatus for clandestine communications, for a courier system, clandestine mailings, safe houses, conspiratorial transport, etc., can be worked out in advance through a precisely systemized distribution of legal leaflets and other publications and letters. Yeah, that's communist psyops. Isn't that what that is? Communist psyops. Oh, it's all part of that, you know. The press, the commie pimping media, they go right along with it and help it out. By the way, safe houses. When Fred Hampton was killed in Chicago, where was he at? He was in a safe house. There was a confrontation. They got him. Oh, but how the uproar over that. Oh, how terrible. Terrible, terrible. He was a commie. They killed him, okay? It's the way it goes. He got his. Now the last paragraph, line item 59. The communist organizer regards every single party member and every revolutionary worker from the onset as he will be in his future historic role as soldier in our combat organization at the time of the revolution. Accordingly, he guides him in his advance into that nucleus and that work which is best corresponds to his future position and type of weapon. His work today must also be useful in itself, necessary for today's struggle, not merely a drill which is the practical worker today does not understand. The same work, however, is also in part the training for the important demands of tomorrow's final struggle. Training. What they got going on with Jade Helm? Training, training, training. Coincidence, huh? No, it's all part of the communist system, the progressive system. Onward, onward, onward. And mark my words, if it isn't stopped, just like there was a Cambodia killing fields, there will be an American killing fields, because that's what the communists do. They enslave people and kill people. They already have us enslaved. They will be killing us in the future. Mark my words, that's the way they operate. They always operate that way. And this completes it, section 8. If you hear me anywhere else than my website, please go to my website, recapturefederalism.com. If you sign up, we give you some information. The new information coming out will be expanding. This is all part of a mini documentary and presentations that are all part of my overall page that I have in a process, a series, the American Communist Theocracy, the Great Tribulation, and Confidence Game. That's what all this is, this clandestine stuff that we're talking about just here today. It's a confidence game. That's what it is. Confidence game, of course, is criminality, and that's what we've been talking about, illegal and legal parties and their activities, the community organizers and their activities, and the army, America's secret communist army. Until next time, have a good day.